9 now on Kiwi.
Live from the New Scientist Labs, it's Janine Young with Wammo on Kiwi.
Live from the New Scientist Laboratories, Melbourne City, Janine Young with us this morning. Good morning to Janine.
Good morning, Wammo.
And the first story today, we're talking about parasites. Gosh, my favourite topic.
Parasites are actually really cool. Don't bag parasites. I spent a whole semester learning about them in third year. They're fabulous. Icky, but they're fabulous. This week we're talking about Guinea worms, which used to be really, really widespread across the world. Around 1986, there were 4 million cases a year. They've managed to bring them now down to around about 4,000 or so, and they're mostly in Sudan. There's a couple in Ghana, but they're actually trying now to eradicate it. It's the only approved, supported program through the UN. The other one is polio. They think they can actually eradicate this worm.
What is this
it's
worm
about
like?
A metre, oh, yeah, it gets exciting from here. It's about a metre long when it gets inside you, and it has a life cycle that starts in a water flea. So about a millimetre long. You can actually see them if you filter the water, and that's important later on. It gets inside your system, it burrows out of your intestine, and it matures around your chest wall or your abdominal cavity. It mates. They make their way just under your skin, and they start growing, and they get to about a metre, as I said before. And you can have, if you're really unlucky, up to 60 of them at any one time. You're not really aware of them until they start sensing that it's time to breed. They kind of sense the year, because a year after they do enter you, they form a blister, and eventually the acid that they produce to try and break that blister is so painful that people head to water to try and ease the burning sensation. The worm senses, oh no, it's amazing, isn't it? The worm senses the water and explodes. It actually sends all its eggs back out into the water again, and the cycle starts again. So, in eradicating, they've worked out that drugs don't work. There's no vaccine.
The drugs don't work.
The drugs don't work because there ain't none. Yeah. And that's part of the... Well, it's not really a problem because it's actually working. It's been eradicated in a number of places. By filtering water, simple things like drinking filtered water means that people aren't drinking the flea. And if you don't drink the flea, you're not drinking the larvae of the worm. People who do actually have it are put in containment huts, and they have cold compresses, and people look after them. The only way to get these worms out is to, and this is where it gets really disgusting, apologies for anyone who's still eating their breakfast, you wind them around a stick about 1 centimetre at a time.
What?
It can take a couple of months to get these suckers out.
We're talking about from your bottom?
No. It's usually around your legs and around your feet, because that's usually the area that ends up in water. So that's the best chance of being able to meet a water flea.
Is that through the blister? Through the blister in your skin, through the opening in the skin?
It's disgusting, but yes, it actually pokes its head out in order to be able to get the eggs out into the water. So when it does that, you can grab it and you can start winding it out. But you've got to do it very carefully, otherwise it'll snap.
And then you'll have half a metre worm inside you. Oh,
yeah,
man.
And either way, that's just not good. But the thing is that you can actually pull these worms out. The problem is you have no immunity once you have had it the first time. So you can get it again the next year and the year after that. And that has major implications for people being able to harvest their crops. If they're in severe pain and they're incapacitated by this worm, they can't plant their crops and they can't harvest them, because these worms in various parts of Africa, which is largely where they're contained now, tend to coincide with the times that people need to plant and harvest their crops. So there's been cases in various villages where people have died because they haven't been able to harvest their crops, or because of a guinea worm.
Yeah.
It's a really serious problem.
Yeah. Tell you what, I think I might have actually seen one, because I actually am fascinated by this kind of stuff, because, you kind of, it's the morbid curiosity of this kind of stuff, I suppose. But I went to the only parasitical museum in the world in Tokyo last year. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I know. So there was a, I can't remember the name of the professor, but a Japanese professor, was doing groundbreaking work on parasites and animals and also in humans. And in his memory, I think they've set up this museum, and you can go there and you can go and see. I think it's like an 8 metre long tapeworm.
Oh,
Just,
Oh,
I know. Just the thought of that inside you. It's crazy. But also parasites on the brain and all sorts of fascinating stuff. So if you're visiting Tokyo, go to the Parasite Museum.
parasites aren't considered to be cool, but we actually have a serious lack of people in the world who study parasites, parasitologists.
Yeah.
There's a shortage of them worldwide. So if anyone thinks that, they're a bit cool, and if you're interested in, how to get rid of them or how they interact with the immune system, please study parasitology, because we need more parasitologists.
Do it, yeah.
There's a serious lack of them. And it's not a joke. It really has massive implications for human health across the world, particularly in developing countries. Sudan, because of the civil war, they can only do eradication work when people aren't firing at one another, because you've got these workers in between.
Yeah.
And they're not going to go out and get killed. I mean, many of them are, but they're not going to deliberately go out and get killed just to remove guinea worms. It's important, but it's not quite that important, if you know what I mean. But they think hopefully within 2 years, if they manage to get a ceasefire, they should be able to eradicate these worms.
All right. Hey, Janine, imagine if we didn't have eyes.
The world would be a very different place for us, and I don't think we'd be quite as human as we currently are. But have you wondered where they came from?
Always.
Well, this is why I like talking to you. You keep asking questions, and that's ultimately what all this is about. It's
so
just
inquisitive.
Really cool stuff and asking questions. Never lose that, my friend. Never lose that. Creationists in particular, have often said, oh, well, the eye is such a beautifully complex organ, it couldn't possibly have evolved. That's one of the main arguments that they tend to come out with. However, there's been some research in the last little while that's come out talking about some of the origins of one of the components of this eye. Evolution doesn't tend to happen all in one go. For something like an eye, you're going to have component parts that will evolve together. In the retina, you have rod and cone cells, and they have proteins in them called opsins. Opsins connect with other proteins in the nerves that help transmit the electrical signal to the brain. So you've got the signal that comes into your eye. It has to get back to your brain somehow. That happens through these nerves. It's called phototransduction. That's kind of... You'll need it at the end, but you don't really need to know what that's called. It's all good. It's just about moving the signal around.
Yeah.
They're found in little tiny freshwater hydra, which are very simple creatures that really, don't do much. They eat and they move along, but they're important for sucking up algae and all that kind of thing. They also have opsins. This particular type of hydra, when you shine bright light on them, suddenly curl up into a ball. So it means they have light responsiveness. And in looking at these hydra, they've found that they also have these opsins. And in having gene sequenced 22 species, they've found that there was a common ancestor of these opsins, and they've evolved into various types over time. But the basis of these opsins are the same. And they think that these hydra might be the earliest, most basic type of opsins and phototransduction in the natural world.
Wow. And so then out of that, we would maybe, when we were like little mud skipper things ourselves, we had that same kind of makeup, and then eventually it evolved into an eye.
Absolutely. Your peepers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think that this is the basis of the sort of place that eyes are likely to have come from. As I said, it doesn't ever come fully formed.
Yeah.
You've got to start from somewhere. And so these base systems for being able to move light and signals around, pretty cool when you think about it. We're actually connected to hydra. They're tiny. They don't do much at all, but they have the same signal processing that we do.
Super cool topics today. Gosh, interesting stuff, Janine. Really cool.
My pleasure.
Thanks for answering my questions.
Do what I can.
It is Janine Young from New Scientist magazine, and those stories, in fact, you'll find in the New Scientist magazine coming out next week.